You should've never doubted me. I'ma work to my last breath. I'ma hustle to my last breath. Yeah, you should've never doubted me. The pain and the struggle followed me.
And we're live. Welcome back to the Work Never Stops podcast. I'm Deji Wessie, host, and have a treat today. Man, it's always great to bring my people in my network on, but this is another really cool one for me, considering the way that we met and just how kind of like randomly you can connect with someone and find out you have so much in common. So I got my man Yasir here, co-founder of a great product, and if you haven't tried it, definitely go hit your local Whole Foods up and check it out, or even just hit the website and just buy some. But co-founder of Lumen, drink Lumen, healthy health shots, great superfood, and it tastes great. It's not like a superfood shot that's like oh well, I'm just gonna put this down because it's healthy. It actually tastes good, and every time I have one, I always feel like, man, I wish this was a little bit bigger so I could have more.
Dude, we get that all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you,
really
man.
good stuff, and really great sourced product as well. So definitely recommend it, not just because Yasir is an awesome dude, but because I actually like the product.
Thank you, man.
So welcome, man.
It's a pleasure, man. I was just thinking when you said how we met at Expo, didn't we?
Yep.
It was years ago, and it's crazy. That was such a weird time, and I know obviously the expos have been canceled recently, but it's one of the largest natural products expos I think in the country, maybe the world. So it's thousands and thousands of people, and we left that event, and it was just such a storm for us because it was the first expo that we'd ever done, and like startup founders, and so you don't really remember much, but it's crazy that there's like one or two people that you connect with, and there's just like something resonates. So I was just, while you were talking, I was like, when did we? Oh, it's Expo. It's crazy.
Yeah. That thing is like it's like a good like 40,000 people, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a whirlwind.
It's the mecca of natural foods.
You get home and you have these bags of brochures and freebies and cards, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go through these, and I mean, you probably never make
it. And then sample stomach, right? You just like you're trying everything. So you're trying cheese and cake and chocolate and energy drinks and water, and like you're not putting stuff away. The probiotics, it's like all new companies too, so like new innovative. So it's just, people are always, they go the first time, and then after the first day they're just like, I don't feel good, and I'm eating a lot of healthy food. It's just because it's not the way you're supposed to, but it's a good time. It's a good time either way.
It's cool to recognize brands from across the country too. There's some good stuff that I'll be traveling. Well, there's always an awesome moment when you see something that you saw on the floor, when you see it in the store. It's like, what? They made it.
It's like, I saw the dude that he was doing the thing.
Oh man, it's good. And there's a bunch of course across the country, and you randomly might be traveling, you find something too, like that you don't get back home. It's really cool. Man. Yeah, Expo. It's funny because of COVID. Obviously we haven't had Expo West, and then Supply Side West was another big one for me. I had a little bit of a conference. What's the word? I can't think of the word, but Withdrawal. I think it was around the summertime, and it's like, wait a minute, man, I missed that. I really missed that. Yeah.
It's been interesting. I think for one, just a lot has changed, right? So for some companies in some categories, it's just been explosive growth, and then for others, it's been like let's wait and hold it out, and so it's a lot has shifted, right? And then there's been like a big e-com push, and also I think the fact that there hasn't been expos it's hurt some and helped others, right? Because the landscape has changed. A lot of things have gone virtually, and I think people have more time at some of these expos as an example, people's schedules are packed. And so the opportunity that has arisen for a lot of the younger brands is that the buyers now have a little bit more time. They're easier to get access to. A lot of things happen virtually. Obviously, it's weird with sampling, but things happen virtually now. So it gives you an ability to kind of quiet out the noise and focus on the connections that you need or the intros that you need. So it's a give and take. I think there's, like everything, there's positives and negatives, but missing the expos even for some of the smaller players, sometimes it could be a blessing because they're not cheap. They're very, very expensive. And so if you can find ways to use that money to drive your brand and still get access to the people that you would have gotten access to, well, that's great. I think as you start to scale, it becomes more and more beneficial for you to be there and for you to have a presence, because it like helps you build that brand presence. But I think early on for some of the smaller players, even though the expos have really good, I think it's fairly favorable pricing, but it's nice to be able to be like, okay, whoa, let me just focus, especially given that there's a pandemic, and see what I can do virtually.
Yeah, it's I agree, man. It's been a really good time to kind of well, at least for me, it's been a good time to kind of step back and get more into my creative mind. As you know, as a founder, I'm sure you can speak to kind of to the essential elements of founding is like, you have to have your creative mind in order to create the product, but you also have to dial in your business mind to actually get it going. You can kind of get heavy on the business side as you're trying to get traction. But the pandemic definitely helped me kind of take a step back and get back into the creative aspect of it and kind of think about how to, how to adjust. And, I guess it's happening in a lot of different ways for you as well.
Yeah, and I think it's very tough. I'm not gonna lie, to be a single. Do you have you're a single founder?
Yeah.
And it's. I mean, I feel for all the single founders out there in the world. I think it's very difficult and it takes a special type of human being to be able to operate on the creative side and the operational side and the growth side and the marketing side and to have a brain that can turn one on and the other off and compartmentalize. Because I think one of the advantages that I've had, and in general, people that have co-founders, is that I can focus more, for instance, sometimes operationally and kind of on the investor side, on the scaling side of the business, and then my business partner and co-founder can focus more on the creative side and the logistics side and the supply chain side. And so to have it all in one place, it's doable. It's definitely doable. But I think, again, it's tough. It's not easy to just be a founder in general and to try to start a company. And so, it's a unique skill to go from creative to operational and back. And so I think that's definitely a skill that I don't have a huge strength in, but I'm very fortunate to have a team where I can be like, hey, can you give me advice on what you see here? And I can give inputs, obviously, and as a consumer, because I think that's fortunate to be a consumer of our product and in the target demographic. But it's tough. It's tough out there for all the single founders, and I think it's an amazing feat when you start to see them really climb up the ladder, because it's like, whoa, it takes a lot.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. I've gotten better at it because I failed at it for so
it's a good way to go.
Other ventures, but now I'm kind of getting to a space where I will have resources to kind of to bring people in, and that starting off as a single founder, bringing people in, that's like a whole nother realm of maybe I shouldn't say this, but emotional space. Like, you've created this thing, and now you're gonna bring people in who you're gonna have to give them a part of your company. That's a big decision to make. How much do you get? How much do you give? And then not just the equity, but the ability to influence the direction of the company. That's a big deal when you've been the line every time you make the calls. Now you're off. You're welcoming influence. It's an interesting space, but it's all for the good of the brand. So you have this. So now you have this amazing drink, and it's on the shelves, and it's a good spot to be in. Maybe somebody watching this is like, oh, I want to have a drink too, you know, I'll just start it and get it in Whole Foods and sell it, you know.
That's how it starts. Yep.
It's not that easy. And it's not a 3-step process. So, you know, so let's start from the beginning, man. How did this start?
Yeah, it's not easy, I would say. So it depends on where the beginning is, but for me, my family's originally from Sudan and Africa, and I was born and raised in the Middle East, came to the US as an immigrant, and was on the path to become a doctor. Like, that was my passion. And fortunately, my family was very supportive. And you know, my co-founder and I got accepted to medical school, and then decided that wasn't the path for us, and decided we're more fortunate to be in a country where there's a lot of opportunity and the ability to kind of chase your dreams. And we also realized that we're passionate about food and agriculture and the future of just the planet, right? Like, we're at this inflection point where some people say it's too late. I like to be an optimist and say that it's never too late, but we're at this point where you know, it feels like a point of no return. And if we look at you know, my family's in Dallas right now, and they just had, I think, the biggest swing in temperature that's ever been recorded in history, where it was negative. I don't know if you look at Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it went from being below freezing to, I think 2 or 3 days ago, it was 80 degrees.
Wow.
So they went from power outages and pipes bursting in the house and no heat to everything is warm and great. And so the world is changing very quickly, and we realize that it's time for us to step up and make change. And so had a startup before Lumen that failed, and then we met with our third partner, and it was exciting because we realized that you could build a brand that can be tied to a system that makes the world better, right? And so and that's the cool thing about building a company, is when you build a company, it's at the beginning an idea. And so the question becomes, how do you take this thing that's like in thin air and then like make it a physical thing, right? Like something that you can grab and touch and hold. And the idea can be anything, which is the other cool part, right? It can be as far out and as crazy as you want it to be. And then as it becomes a product, and then as it hits the market and as you grow, your expectations have to change, and you have to kind of understand how to work that flow. But I think, so in the early days, it was 3 of us, and we had this idea. Everyone was extracting, isolating, trying to make hemp, you know, CBD, and trying to get it as strong as it can be, and running it through ethanol. For us, we looked at this space, and obviously everyone was going kind of dispensaries, and we're like, nobody's taking hemp to, a few people were, but taking hemp to the grocery channel, and nobody was juicing the hemp plant. Everyone was trying to extract and isolate, and we're like, why don't you just cold press juice it? People drink cold pressed celery juice and kale juice, and you saw what was happening with Nectar Juice Bar and Jamba Juice, and people were just excited to have healthy cold pressed juices. And so we're like, why don't we just do that with hemp? You get all the vitamins and minerals, the aminos, it's green juice, it's healthier. And the concept behind our company was, there's this thing called regenerative agriculture. If you think about, it's honestly not that complicated. If you think about farming, you can either it can be farming that's bad for the planet, it's farming that's sustainable, so it's like status quo, what you put in is what you get out, or farming that's what we call regenerative, which the input, it's better for the planet, so what you put in is actually more than what you get out of it. Is kind of the simple way to think about it. So we're like, why don't we tie our company to these practices that are good for the planet, and so that as we grow, we're putting more pressure on these systems that are good for the planet to grow. And these systems are run by people, right? They're farmers, and these farmers have to have very ethical practices on their farms. And so it's like, okay, well, if we grow, we can keep supporting them, and then they can keep supporting their employees, and they keep supporting their farms. And so Lumen becomes this big thing, but then also we're empowering the entire supply chain. And that was the idea. And it's harder than it seems, man. Like we, you know, there was a point where we couldn't afford a place to stay, and we asked the farmer, we were like, hey, you know, could we, I think we still have pictures, but we pitched a tent in his barn, and he grew some hemp for us and on a loan. And we bought a juicer with a little bit of money that we had, and we would work nights because he is a vegetable farm, and his crew worked during the day. So we obviously couldn't be interfering with his crew and his operation. That's how he puts food on the table. Sorry about that. And so we we just worked on his farm, and we kept pushing, and overnight we juice hemp, and we figured out how to juice it, and we're like, okay, well, this works. Then we figured out how to grow it, and then how to process it, how to scale it. And then we had hemp juice, right? We had this concept. It was like, cool, the ingredients there, but now how do we make it a brand? And so you go through the process of figuring out what to name it and how to manufacture it and where to get the bottles and the label. And it's just one thing at a time. And then we didn't have enough money to do a full-blown launch. So we reached out to Indiegogo and we're like, let's do pre-sales. Let's see if we can get, let's see if anyone's interested. And so they said yes. They were like, look, we'll do it. So we launched on Indiegogo with a pre-sale campaign. And it was, I think it was 60 days. And we had a little bit of money for marketing, and we put it on Facebook, and we were like, hey, Facebook, we'd love to market. They said everything looks good. It's hemp, it's a juice, it's no extracts, no isolates, no chemicals. And then they banned us. They were like, hey, you're an illegal drug manufacturer. You can't advertise.
Gotten that one before.
So we're like, yeah. And so you get to this moment where you're like, what do I do now? And what we did was we, took the little bit of money that we had that was supposed to go to marketing, and we put it into product. We filled some coolers. And we were in Oakland at the time, and we just went up and down the block, knocking on yoga studios, CrossFit gyms, anyone that was willing to let us set up a little table and tell people what we did. And we'd set up these white tables, and we'd just be like, hey, look, we're a young and hungry brand, and we have wellness shots. They taste amazing. And, we'd love for you guys to support us. So we would get in there and we would do yoga. I thought yoga was easy. It is not easy. And we would do CrossFit, and we were doing like X-Core, crazy climb, like stair climber workouts. And so we would get in there, we'd get down and dirty with these classes, and we'd have fun with it. And then at the end of the class, we'd tell people about what we did. And we were able to do 32,000 in pre-sales in about 6 weeks. Nice. And that was kind of like okay, cool, people want it, and there's enough traction there. So we closed our campaign. We shipped product a couple weeks after that, and 2 or 3 grocery stores in LA said, hey, we'd love to pick you guys up. So we packed our bags and moved to LA, and I think the rest has kind of been history. But happy to dive into any other part of the story. It hasn't been easy. You just got to kind of grind through it,
Yeah, but also like what I hear is it's an ability to adjust. And I think it's something you got to continue to do as you keep growing. Is adjust to the market, adjust to kind of your current situation, but keep your mission in mind. And it's not just about creating a product for the profit. Essentially the profit is kind of more than the fiscal number at the end of the year. It's are you creating a movement that can last, that can actually impact, and that's something I resonate with, because that's kind of something that I'm doing with Go Hard is it's got to impact people, so in a positive way anyway.
And just being realistic, right? I think one thing that we realized early on is that we had these big dreams, but our dreams didn't necessarily meet reality, right? We wanted to be good for the planet, but when we looked at how much money we had and we looked at how to launch a brand, we realized that like, oh my God, we have to be in plastic bottles. And that keeps us up at night. We hate the fact that we're in plastic bottles. And we found a solution. We found ones that are fully compostable and biodegradable. We found ones that are fully recyclable. But then the question becomes, if I do that now, it breaks my model. I'm not going to get anywhere because they're too expensive to buy. And so you have to realize that like we have this big dream, but then also you have to start somewhere. And so there's always going to be, you understand who you are, but then there's going to be compromises. So it's like, what do I have to compromise in the short term to get to where I need to be in the long term? And so you try to not compromise a lot of those values. You try to keep the core essence there, but you also have to understand that there's a responsibility to the financial structure of how you build your business and making sure you understand your unit economics, because profit isn't the key motive, but you can't be building a business that's at the end of the day designed to fail because you want to charge someone $3.99, but it costs you $4 to make the shot or whatever it is. Like that's never, no matter how big your ambition is, unless you've got some crazy backing, it's just never going to make any sense. And so I think that's a key lesson is knowing where you want to be, but also understanding that sometimes you gotta live in reality in terms of what's going to work today, and then always understand that like if I'm making this compromise today, I have to know that this is a value that I hold dear, and to get to where I want to go, it has to change.
Yeah, man. This is like part of what I'm getting at with like the whole work never stops thing. This thing is always moving. It's living and breathing, and you got to make decisions on like you said, what are you going to sacrifice essentially for, for what you want? You always have to
Yeah,
give up something to get something, and it's
absolutely.
constantly changing.
Give and take.
Yeah. So in that vein, you know, eh, considering, you have a start point, right? And you're moving forward, and you're going to these yoga studios and things like this. Of course, one day somebody says, "Hey, we'll carry your product." That's obviously a great moment. But for you, what was your moment when you felt like, oh, like this thing's working, like this, like.
Um, it happens. It comes and goes. I think uh, early on, a lot of the time, it's like this isn't working,
Yeah.
and then you keep at it for long enough, and then you get like Indiegogo is an example, right? We're like, this isn't working. We're pounding the pavement. We're knocking on every door we can. Like, it's not happening. And then I used to get notifications on my phone every time someone would order on our Indiegogo campaign. And we had this one option that we were like, no one's ever going to pick this option. It was like $5,000 for a lifetime supply. And we're just like, we just threw it on there. And
Yeah.
we're just like pounding the pavement. It's not working, man. Like, we're just, we're racking them up, $30, $50. It's just like, how are we going to get there? All of a sudden, we're at the apartment, or I think we were at dinner, and I look at my phone and it says like, someone purchased on your Indiegogo, and I see the notification, and it's like 0, 0, 0, and I was like 0, 0, and then 5. And I was like, what just ended? We're at this restaurant. I was like, oh, and everyone's like looking at the table, and my co-founder's next to me. He's like, what's going on? I was like, look, I don't know. So that was a moment, where it's like, oh, this is working out. But then you go back to like, okay, back to work, and then getting into the first couple grocery stores, that was another moment where we were like, nobody wants us. We kept at it. And then eventually they were like, hey, look, we'll put you on shelf. So that was another moment. We're like, whoa, okay, like this might be working. And then you realize, so this is another thing. Like, we used to think getting into grocery stores, we're like, that's 90% of the battle. Like, we just got to get in. If we get in, we're going to do well. And then we're in, and then we realize like, whoa, no, that was just the start. Like 90% of the battle is getting off the shelf. Yeah. And so again, it's usually a moment where you're like, whoa, this is working out, and then followed by okay, no, back to work. And it cycles, right? And so that was one of them. I think, and when COVID first hit, our business got like, it just the nature of where we were at and being small, a lot of things changed for us. So that was another moment where it's like, whoa, what's happening? And then we got into Whole Foods. So then that was another moment where it's like, I think it's working. Yeah. And then recently it's just been crazy, and very thankful for a lot of the things that have been developing for us. So it had to say like, when was that moment? My best answer would be it comes and goes. And I think that the key is just persistence and patience, right? Like, if you just stay at it and you believe in yourself, and you know that it'll come, and then when it comes, usually you realize like, oh, great, back to work. So you learn to appreciate those moments. You learn to be thankful for those moments. You learn to be like, okay, let me take this in for a little bit, and then you realize like, okay, the only reason I got here is because of everything I did to get to here. So if I want to get to where I want to go, I just got to go back and keep doing those things.
Yeah, no, it's man, awesome story. You got it's key to like not get too high, right? Like, enjoy it, because
you have to let it, because you will go nuts. I mean, it will eat you. The amount of work, the amount of energy, the amount of effort, the amount of sacrifice that it takes to start something is hard to explain. And so you have to take those moments. You have to take those wins. And like, it was bad in the early days because obviously we didn't. I mean, still, like, we just didn't have much. Like, it's just you're really toughing it out. And so when you get a win, it was just like a high five, get back to work. And we realized that's not going to work. Like, we have to stop. We have to breathe. We have to celebrate. We have to enjoy it, because that's the fuel for the next. That's the fuel that's going to get you to the next.
Exactly.
One,
Yeah.
You got to take it. You got to enjoy it. You got to cherish it.
100%, man. Yeah, whenever I get one of those inflections or one of those bumps, like the first 6 months or so, I kind of maybe wasn't really celebrating it, but now like I'll have a cigar, or I'll go have a drink or something like this, and be like, yes, man, that's awesome. And then when it's time to get back to work, I'm like, I'm even more excited because I'm like, man, I live for this shit. Like, this is cool. Like, like,
Yeah,
yes, like,
it's
So
coming to life, you know.
yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing, man. That's cool. Um, so now, like, you were talking about, dreaming big, so for you, like, what's your big dream? I mean, now somebody will pay $5,000 to get a lifetime supply. So maybe maybe your perspective changed a bit, but
Yeah, a little
what's
bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, for us, the big dream has always been uh, fundamentally like, let's make the world a better place and let's make people like heal the planet and heal people. It's kind of just like at a very basic level.
Mhm.
And so the big dream has always been that how do we make a shot more than just a shot, right? Or make a product more than just a product? How do you buy Lumen and it be good for you, but also that dollar goes so much further, right? It goes to support a farm that uses the right principles. It goes to support a diverse company. It goes to support female founders. It goes to support um, and so that's kind of our big dream, is that as we scale our company, and it always has been our dream, is to eventually become a global brand that is more than just about a wellness shop, right? It's about how do we use our dollars as a vote and a voice for the things that we care about. And if people don't care about that, it's okay if they don't buy a Lumen. Like that's what we're betting on, right? We're betting on trying to make the climate a better place. We're betting on trying to, push forward, social inclusion and provide opportunities for those that have been underrepresented. And so I think that's the big dream. The big dream is that wherever we land, if we have moved the needle just a little bit, that's enough. That's it's good to have these amazing aspirations. For us, it's like, let's go global. Let's take over the world. And that only increases our impact. That only increases opportunity for others. That only increases the amount of carbon we're sequestering in soil. That only continues to reduce climate change. But anywhere on that spectrum is honestly a win.
Yeah.
So
No, it's awesome, man. Because I mean, just the fact that you're doing it is you have this mission. It's going to influence somebody else who
yeah,
also thinks the same thing. So
I
it's
hope
a
so.
chain reaction in a few different directions.
Yep.
And from my perspective, I mean, it's dope that you guys are doing this, and you've been doing it from the beginning. It's not like you had this company, this concept, and then all of a sudden, because the world is the way the world is now, you've adopted this thing to kind of be
Yeah.
more marketable. Like you've
Yeah.
been on this since the beginning.
Yeah. And you have to be humble to the things you don't know. I think it's also important to give credit where credit's due. There's people that haven't been doing it from the beginning and then have realized like, whoa, what I've been doing isn't the right thing, and I've chosen to make a shift. And so I think it's great to have those values and say like, oh, I was there from the beginning, but it's also great to understand that it takes it takes a village, right? They say it takes a
Mhm.
village to raise a child. It takes everybody in the world has to work together to make the world a better place. And so it's just, you got to have that humility. You got to be humble to the fact that like, this is where we're going. If you're joining me, great. If you're not joining me, get out my way, because we're going,
Yeah.
um, and just understand that like a lot of people sometimes get scared of competition. They're like, whoa, well, they're doing what I'm doing. It's great, cool. Now we got two people pushing in the same direction. And then some people think that like, oh man, there's just too many big players in the market. Well, go create your own space in the market. Like
Yeah.
it's an infinite mindset, right? And it's understanding that everybody sometimes want this like big exit. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you don't have to have a big exit. Maybe maybe a sustainable company is good enough, right?
Right.
And just knowing that you push the needle forward. So it's just, I think, being true with yourself and knowing like, what do I want? And then knowing that as long as you fulfill that, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do you. But first figure out what you is. So it's just
Exactly. That's the hardest part. It's honestly the hardest part.
yeah.
I don't think I
Yeah.
know. I mean, I have a good understanding now of like who I am, but it's just constant. You evolve, you change, you grow, you learn. You said it earlier. You're like, man, I'm here today because I've failed so many times, and failure is key, right? They tell you fail early and fail often. And
Yeah.
for us, we put our failures up at the end of every month. We put our failures up and we look at
Yeah.
them and we're like, okay, the keys, don't make these again. We can make new ones. It's not a problem, but just let's not
Right.
make these ones again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how you grow.
you're willing to embrace the change and, you know, and do what it takes to grow and move forward. And that's why you guys are where you are today. That's for sure. Yeah. No, it's awesome, man. Good, you know, good to, you know, to meet up and do this.
One of my partners has a funny saying. He says, for people who don't want to change, he's like, then don't use the Wi-Fi. He's like, you can go back to a buggy and horse, a cart and horse. Like, you know, you don't have to drive a car. If you like how it used to be, then feel free. You know, Wi-Fi is cool, but you don't have to, like, your pen and paper is good, you know. Because some people embrace change in one place but not in another. And he's like, it's funny, but it's true. It's like, hey, look, if you don't want to move with the times, that you don't have to have a cell phone. Like,
go for it.
Like it's a new thing, you know.
Yeah. You don't have to. Man, you touched on something that made me think about kind of collaboration and like a sense for you know, collaborating for like a greater good. And you know, I'm in New Zealand right now, right? And so I can't help but see like the difference of the way that we do business in the US. There's a lot of this like competitive mindset and like a scarcity mindset. But it's not like that here. It's crazy. It's crazy in the sense that, like, you know, I've been in this in one confine for my whole life, and then now it's like seeing, you know, and everybody outside of that is trying to do business that way. But then I come here and it's kind of more to, like, you know, it's more my natural way of doing business is collaboration. Is like, how can we, you know, have a better deal together? Like, you know, how can we get a better price by working together, you know? So so it's possible. I say that to say it's possible.
And I also, it's like, I believe in the law of attraction to a big degree, right? Like, I think even if you feel like everyone around you doesn't have a sense of collaboration, you can seek those people out, right? Maybe it's never that it doesn't exist. Maybe it's just that there's less of it than there is other stuff, right? So if you feel like, man, nobody wants to collaborate, maybe it's, most people don't, but if you seek it out, you can find it. And just knowing that that's your intention, right? You gotta, it's hard, but sometimes you really gotta focus on, what do I want out of the world? And it's crazy when you focus hard on one thing, right? When you're like, I want to collaborate. That's the one thing I want. And if you focus at it for long enough, the funny thing is it'll happen. And it's hard for me to explain how or why, but it just does. And it's happened to me over and over and over. And I think it's, if you focus on, I want 10 things, right? I want a new car and a watch. I want to get married. I want to find the right partner. I want my company to grow. And you try to do all those things, and you're horrible at all of them. But if you say, like, okay, I just want, you know, Lumen to succeed. I just want to get into Whole Foods. I just want, and if you focus on one thing and understand and appreciate what it takes to get there, and you're patient, then you can have it. And I think it goes with collaboration as well. If you're like, I just want to collaborate, I just want to find one good partner. My goal is 6, but right now I just want to find one. Then you'll find that one. And then from there, you're like, okay, I just want one more. Or you realize once you have that one, maybe one is all you ever needed, right? You wanted 6, but you found one that was the perfect one.
The best partner you could ever have.
Well, you never know until you find it. And so I think just being humble to what you don't know, and then always having, you can maybe, some people could maybe do 2 at a time if you've got 2 founders, but just start with one focus, right? Like, I want to launch a product, right? I want to get it from an idea to something I can hold in my hand. That's good. And there's already enough there, right? It seems so simple that, like, but it's already enough there that's going to be more than you can handle. So just focus on that. And once you have it, be like, okay, what's the next step? I just want one person to buy it. One, okay, I just want 100, and it's 1,000. And then those steps in and of themselves come with their own challenges and their own failures.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like we were talking about it earlier, it's not easy, yet it's simple. It's simple, but it's not simple. Easy. No, it's good. No, absolutely. You have to stay focused. And you know, one thing I'll say about the collaboration and focus thing is, like, I've always been able to find like-minded people. But one thing that I think is amazing is when you find, you know, that person to collaborate, they kind of become, you know, an attractor, for, you know, for lack of a better word. They will like attract good energy back to you as well. So it's always great when it's not just you, or it's not just, you know, your group of founders, you know, being a spokesperson for, you know, for what, you know, what your mission is. You know, you're, every time you attain that person, your reach grows more and
It's an
more.
ecosystem, right? And you realize that as you grow, you outgrow some and you haven't reached others, right? And it's just the reality, right? There's people that I'm like, man, I wish I could get to meet them one day. And now I'm friends with them. And then there's others where, like, unfortunately, somewhere along the lines, and I'm still love and appreciate everyone, but there's people that somewhere along the line I just couldn't keep up with anymore. And it's just a part of the evolution of life. And I think you have to learn, and again, be humble to where you're at. Like, it's like, okay, I don't have the time that I used to spend on the things that I used to. And since I don't have as much time, how do I allocate it most effectively, right? And like, what are my priorities? Because people say like, oh, how do you manage your time? You work all the time. It's like, no, I have priorities. And then it's not that I manage my time, it's that I manage my priorities. And so if my priorities are my family, my Lumen, and let's just say exercise and diet. And obviously I've got other things in there, but let's just say it's my family, Lumen, exercise and diet. And sometimes Lumen is so overwhelming that exercise, diet, my family get no time. But since they are still my priorities, whenever I handle the Lumen piece, I then overcompensate by spending more time with my family, getting my exercise back on track and fixing my diet. Or I try to keep my diet fixed and then sometimes I realize like, oh, my diet's great. It's okay, I've already built this habit, something else can take that priority. And then maybe it's friends. And so you realize that it's not necessarily time management, it's priority management. And that it's just sometimes you get pulled one way more than the other. And sometimes you grow in one direction and not another. And you evolve. And if people around you don't evolve, then you move on. And if they evolve past you, then you reach out and say, hey, can you pull me up? And if you get pulled up, I think you have to also be humble to turn around and, you know, look at the next person that's looking for that step up and be like, hey man, someone help me up, you know, come on up. And just the mentality to just always pay it forward.
Yeah, man, you just broke down the best work-life balance kind of scenario for an entrepreneur. I feel like, you know, that's literally the healthiest example right there. No, it's not, but it comes down to priorities, and maybe sometimes your family doesn't understand, you know, and you know, these are, you know, very important people, but the truth is that you know, your priorities are your priorities, you know.
And they tell you, what do they tell you on a plane? They put your mask on before you put on the mask of someone else, because if you pass out, then then like nobody wins, right? Like, and similar in concept, right? If Lumen needs a lot of attention, then and Lumen pays my bills, and my bills allow me to be happy around my family, and then all of a sudden it's a priority, then, and my family needs me for like a family gathering or something it's not like something that's critical. Right. And then you address the thing that's critical. You're like, okay, I have to be here now. And the other thing you realize is it's not that you just have to be there. It's that it's a privilege, right? It's a privilege to live in a world where I get to have a business. It's a privilege to have a family. There's a lot of people in the world, like, you have to be humble that like some people are out there alone. And so it's like, it's a privilege to have a family. It's a privilege to have an opportunity to own a company. It's a privilege to have friends. And so you get to do all these things, right? It's not that I have to work on Lumen. It's that I get to have a company. It's not that I visit my family, it's that I have the privilege to get to visit my family. And so when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And also understanding that it's all a privilege, right? And we have to be humble to that. And just some sacrifices happen, right? Like sometimes my family's like, we haven't been here for the past like 3 months. I do my best to call. And you gotta there's someone's always gonna get at the short end of the stick. But if you have the right priorities, you'll manage just enough.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, the family comes before too, right? You know, so
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
it ebbs and flows.
There's been instances, where there's been like, you know, unfortunate events with family, and then it's like, okay, even though other things might be more critical, it becomes the most critical. And so it's like, okay, everything else is on the wayside. I have to be here now. And so it's just the way, like, you know, my sister recently had a second kid. So it's like, okay, well, that's a priority, right? Like that, you know, if family is important to you, it's like, okay, well, all of this is always going to be here, right? Lumen's at a place where it's probably going to be fine. Like, go here, and then you spend that time with family. You spend it to be with the ones you love. And then it's like, okay, you got your time. I have to go back because now there's other priorities.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's, you know,
Yeah, thank you.
always bringing joy, man. That next generation. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, good stuff, man. No, it's no, absolutely. I feel you with the family thing. You know, I think these last couple years have been kind of, you know, I've been on that
COVID.
roller coaster, so to speak, you know. So yeah, man.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, they're just like, man, like, how do you do it with family? I'm like, look, they sacrifice just as much as you do as a founder. And I also tell them, like, you have to understand that they're coming from a place of love, right? Like when someone says like, I don't think you should start a company, it's not because they don't, I like to believe it's not because they don't think you should start a company. I think it's because they believe that they couldn't do it, right? It's like, oh man, like that's a really hard thing to do. But don't let them put that on you, but also understand that they're coming from a place of love. They're coming from a place of wanting what's best for you. And they're also coming from a place of a mindset that's like, that's not a very easy thing to do. So why don't you do something that's a little easier, which increases your likelihood of success. But if you really believe in yourself, then, and you really love your family, you're like, look, I'm going to go do it, but I hear you. And I think that's the important thing. The important thing is to say, I hear you and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to go do it and watch me succeed, because it starts with your belief in yourself and then being patient, being persistent, and just knowing that they're coming from a place of love. They're not saying it to like put you down. They're saying it because it's not something that they would have done themselves.
Yeah, that's something that I think is really important, is that like not taking it personal, like taking the ego out of it. You know, if you're going to go down this path, you definitely have to, you know, have to work on the ego thing, because
or it'll work on you'll learn one way or another, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
you'll learn it or it'll be taught to you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's so many aspects of the growth. You know, as a founder or just a business owner, I think it's important to keep continuing to work on yourself. You know, you mentioned self-belief, and that's something that you need to build up, and it's a delicate balance. It's like, you know, you have to be able to believe in yourself, but also not be like arrogant and like, you know,
100%, yeah.
You know, because hubris has you know, has taken down, you know, a few people. So,
yeah, I got it. Humility is key, right? You have to be humble to the things you don't know and don't understand. There's a time where you know, there's been many times during the lifetime of our company where I was just like, it's not gonna make it, even though I had a very strong belief in myself. That doubt is how you start to break through, right? Because that doubt of like, oh, we're not gonna make it, if you focus on it, then it could be your demise. But if you sit back and pull yourself out of the situation and say, well, why am I feeling that way? And then obviously it's because of something, right? And so if you find what that something is, I tell the guys, I'm like, the world is trying to tell us something right now. And if we figure it out, we break through. So it either breaks us or we break it. And you realize that whatever it is that you didn't fix, once you fixed it, it's just like boom, through. And for us, as an example, we had a shot on our lineup that like didn't taste it was very functional but didn't taste as good, and we believed in it, right? And so like we had this it works for us, and we launched it and it like didn't do well, and we pushed it and it didn't do well. And so we had to ask ourselves, like, what is the world trying to tell us right now? What it was trying to tell us is that functionally it was great, people would buy it once, but they weren't going to buy it again. And so how much do we believe in the function versus how much are people telling us that they don't want the shot? And so we had to let it go. We put something else in place, and that other thing we put in place is doing like 50 to 100 times better. And so it's like the world is trying to tell us like, hey, this isn't going to work. And so regardless of how hard we believed in it, it wasn't going to work. And so don't push that ball uphill, find the path of least resistance. So don't let it break you, find a way to break through it.
Yeah, you got to listen to your market, man. Listen to listen
Yeah.
to the
Believe in
market.
yourself, but be humble to the things you don't know, and listen and learn from them, right? The world is
Yeah,
always, whenever times are tough, the world is trying to tell you something, right? It's like, hey, if you want to get through this, I'm trying to show it to you, but you got to figure it out. Like, I'm not gonna it's never like, hey, front page on your phone, Instagram, whatever, notification, like, hey, this is what you're
yeah,
doing wrong. It's always a think deeper, sit down,
yeah,
digest, focus, look inward. What are you doing? What is it? What are you not getting? What are you not seeing? What are you not hearing?
yeah. That's key. Look inward, because people are usually kind of looking for the answers outwardly. Usually the answers within you. Um, yeah, I used to study the Hermetic philosophies, and there's this concept of vibrations. And whenever I have a down day, I it's funny because maybe like a couple other companies ago, I have a down day and I'd be all like, tripping about it. But now through my growth, through my maturity, if I have a down day, my deep down core reaction is, oh, I'm about to have a big win. What is it? Like, and I'm looking for
Yeah.
that win. Like, and of course, sometimes it's literally, most of the time it's the next day. Like the next morning, that first email, it's like, oh, I knew it. Yeah, like, like
Yeah. Yeah, I knew it was coming. I had a
yeah,
feeling.
yeah. So
It's the
yeah,
same
you
the other
definitely,
way, right?
yeah,
You
true.
have some big days, and then I tell the guys, something's gonna happen. Like,
So,
let's
yeah.
let's not get too comfortable
Be ready.
because we're gonna get rocked. Like, let's just
Yeah. Hold
everybody
the
hold
line.
on.
Hold the
Yeah,
line.
just hold
Yeah.
it. I know
Yeah.
it's good, but
Yeah.
let's not stop doing what got us here, right? I think it's
Yeah.
easy to get caught away with those big wins and be like, oh, celebrate. I'm not saying don't celebrate, but I
Yeah.
think from my past failures, when you get that big win,
Mhm.
enjoy it, but hold the line, because God, if you start getting comfortable,
Yeah.
it works just like when you're uncomfortable and you learn a lesson and the world breaks you through. If you get comfortable and the world will
Oh
come
yeah.
back and be like, all right, get back into your place. Like
Hmm.
it'll tell you that, hey, the fundamentals are what got you here. Don't forget the
Yeah.
fundamentals.
Yeah. The good thing is that over time you build thicker skin, and you develop more skills to kind of deal with
You numb
those.
out a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get hit too
Exactly.
many
Yeah.
times. You're just like, all right,
Yeah.
I know what it feels like.
Like, all right.
Just come on, give it to me.
Yeah, yeah, that's a part of the reason why, like, I would box, is because, like, it's like, dude, if I can go, if I can take a punch, if I can go deep, like this, it's building up my resilience like crazy. Fortunately, life has
Yeah.
thrown me some left hooks too,
Uh,
so so
Yeah. Hey, look, I think you bring up a good point, right? For you, it's boxing. For some people, it's cycling. For others, it's running. And I think a piece of advice for everyone out there is find your thing, right? For some people, it's video games, right? For others, and no one's ever going to question what your thing is. But if you want to start something big, or just start a company in general, or if you want to change the world, or if you want to, whatever it is that your mission is in this world, I think, or not, right? If you just have a regular 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that. Find your release, because everyone has a certain tolerance, and once that tolerance gets to the edge, you break. And so
yeah,
find, whether it's meditation or yoga or Muay Thai or boxing or running or walking, or talking to family, right? Some people just like
right,
to talk. Whatever it is that your release is, I would say, as it's a part of looking inward, find out what it is that just like gets you just to relax, and go to that place and get comfortable with that place, because they're just like you said with boxing, like you get used to those hits, but some days I bet you, if it's a tough day, you're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna put my gloves on, and you find that release, and it helps you kind of get
yeah,
clear again to get back to where you needed to be.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, man. No, truly, the work never stops, no matter what area it is, for sure. So,
It never stops,
yeah,
right?
even on balancing yourself out and kind of and releasing it. So,
That's work,
yeah,
right? If you're
yeah,
trying to be a better brother or a better father, a better son, better husband, better sister, better mother, but better whatever, right? Trying to
yeah,
be a better partner, that takes work. If you want to
yeah,
be better at relaxing, that takes work. If you want to
yeah.
be better at enjoying vacation time, that takes
Oh
work.
man,
So work
that's
never
one right
stops. It's
there.
just in different phases, right?
Yeah, Yeah, no, that vacation time one. That's that's
Yeah, but if it's something that you lack, then it's a part of work never stops, right? You just got to
yeah,
work on the vacation part. And some
yeah,
people are like, how do you work on a vacation? Where it's like, well, I worked so good at working, like, right?
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
worked nonstop for the last 6 months. And
Now
so
I gotta.
obviously I'm having to figure out how to do this one. People are like, how hard is it to take a vacation? Well, for some people, it's very hard.
You'd be surprised.
Um, yeah, I know someone recently where he's a mentor of mine, and his brother-in-law told him, he's like, hey man, you can't sit still. And so he thought about it, he's just like, maybe I can't sit still. So he's like, you know what I did? I cleared my schedule. He's like, I found a week, just took the whole week off. And
Yeah.
he's like, I sat down and I like read newspapers. I like
Okay.
did some stuff around the house. And he said, after the week, I called my brother-in-law back and I was like, you know what? I realized? It's not that I can't sit still, because I can do it. I just did it for a week. It's that I don't like to sit still. Like my body just isn't designed to sit still. But he was like, it was nice. I just don't like it. And so why would I do something that I don't like to do? And so people like that, if you have a family, if you got a wife, you got kids, they're like, you got to work on it. Like you got to, I know you don't like it, but you got to work on the vacation thing. So, he's an amazing human being, and he definitely manages all of it, but it's just, you got to work on it. It's good and bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially with people like that, you got to figure out how much of that you can stomach, right? Because it sitting still will help you work better. Like it's so it may not be a week for him, but if he has like an hour a week, obviously, you'll see some increase.
Some people, I'm just gonna say it out loud. Like some people are just weird. Like I know one guy who gets like 4 hours of sleep, and he just he was born just different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people, I have to be humble to like, I'm just like, something happened when you were born, and you can operate this way. Most can't. Most people, and some people need like 10 hours of rest.
Yeah,
right? But they're still extremely efficient, and they get a lot done. And so it's not how or where you allocate time. It's just some people are just wired differently,
Nah, sure,
you gotta appreciate that. I was like, hey, I love it. I'm not gonna try to beat you. I'm not gonna try to sleep 4 hours a day, but I appreciate what you can do, man. It's a one-off thing,
Yeah, we all got our we're dealt our deck of cards. It's like
maximize the return on it.
Yeah, it's like the guy who smokes cigarettes and he doesn't train, but he can play a full soccer game, and you're like, how the hell did you?
It's like you're just built different, man.
No, absolutely, man, for sure. Man, this was great. This was great, man. I hope.
It's a pleasure, man. It's great seeing you. It's great catching up. I know we catch each other every now and then, but I'm glad that we got to catch each other on here and just have a conversation, and hopefully it helps somebody, man. I'm hoping that, I know you got a great reach out there and an amazing network, and, to everyone out there that's trying to build something, just know that, it takes the first step. And I think you're a great inspiration to many people out there, even myself. So, dude, I'm glad we found the time to make this work.
Yeah, man, it's that digital, digital influence on the world now. It's like, oh, we don't have to figure out what coffee shop to meet up. Just dial up.
Let's make it happen. The world is a way.
Yeah, man, absolutely, dude. So thanks for coming through. Really appreciate it. All the stories and everything, man. Yeah. So so guys, go get out there, drink Lumen.
Meet Lumen on Instagram. Drinklumen.com, and then feel free to DM us. We'll get out there and talk to you guys. We're still small enough to where you'll get us. So.
Yeah. Well, for now.
I know. I hope it's, again, like we've gotten here because we've been so close to the brand. So I hope we're never too far away.
Yeah.
If we are, bring me back to this podcast and show me this part of the video and be like, look, you said that you hope you never get too far. Accountability is key, man. You got to be like, look right there.
Hey.
38, you said.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. For sure, man.
Right, brother.
All right,
cool. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.